And welcome to day 3 of this series. This is reviewing Strategy Wars Season 7's trades that I had taken during the entire month of November of 2024. Here I am on November 6th. This trade was placed on November 6th. You can see the dates here. I did take two of them. This was not actually the stacking style that I've talked about. These are two separate trades. And what they are is like an entry at the retest and then a continuation of pullback of a level here. And targeting slightly different take profits. But essentially, they are kind of like two different trades in that the entries were the idea behind them was similar as because there was a bullish bias, but I did not enter at this same point. So I wouldn't call this stacking. And I know a lot of people sometimes get that confused. Like when I stack and am entering around the same price point versus when I might take two trades similar in style or similar around each other, but there's different reasons. It's because I saw different things happening in the charts. So this is one of those times where I saw something different happening, but I was still really happy with the trend and the bias that I had. So I took another position because my first position was already in profit and looking very strong that I would stay in profit. So let's get into this for you. This for you, just FYI, is what I'm talking about. Is my first trade here. And as you can see, by the time that I entered into my second trade here, my first trade had already been pretty good with being in profit. It was well on its way to its take profit. So because of that, I was able to confidently secure my trade at break even. So it was no longer going to lose and then take a second entry. So a little different than stacking, I wait until my first trade is in profit or slightly in profit, risk free, and then I'll take on more risk because I can't lose the first trade at that point. I might not win as much money, but I can't lose it, meaning that my initial risk is just now being taken again with a second entry. And if both trades end up winning, great, I've doubled my potential income. But if I lose this second trade, that's not a big deal. I'm only risking what I was willing to risk on this first trade, and the first trade can't lose. hopefully, hopefully I didn't lose you guys too much on that logic behind my crazy head. But that is what I'm doing here, just so everybody understands. All right, so what we're looking at here is the Nasdaq 100 on the 1 minute time frame. This was a bullish bias. If you watch the video that I made on day 2, I show where the bullish bias comes from. There was a really strong breakout of consolidation that happened, and the market just was soaring up. So what happens here, again, there is a nice little resting period of consolidation during the Tokyo session into London session. A little bit of movement too as well there because this is all 1 minute time frame. But there was some movement and then a nice resting period prior to opening. And then you get some volatility. It's very normal to see that with opening, but all very reassuring that there's still going to be a bullish bias because it's all just breaking out. So it's pushing up, comes back, retests, doesn't create a new lower low structure, pushes up, makes a new higher high, comes back into this zone, retests the zone, which I'm okay with. And it retests at a higher point, not a lower point. So had it come down here, and maybe it would have waited a bit, but it retests in this zone at a higher point than this area. So we're starting to make structure. We have a high, we have a new higher high. This was your low, this is your new like high, and then so forth. So now when that happens, what we're thinking will happen and what you're predicting will happen when you're entering your trade is that you will then essentially make a new higher high from this high. So that was my rationale for getting in. This breakout happens, at this point in here. I wasn't in the market just yet. I was getting ready to. It's still early. I'm still working on getting in a little bit faster at this point, and probably doing my numbers and all that stuff. Because this is 1 minute time frame, so this does move quick. So I did wait till it came back down a little bit. Does retest again? I got lucky in that case. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes you just got to get in a little bit higher. But in this case, I got lucky. It did come back to retest just a little bit, so I got a nice entry price there. And that's also just more confirmation to be clear about like this area because it doesn't going to make a new lower low here. It's just creating the low above this one. So again, continuing market structure. So you would enter in, assuming that you're going to create a new higher high up here from this level. So I did enter in at that point. I did put my stop loss below this zone. This is pretty typical for me. It did retest. Some of you who follow me closely might be like, why didn't you just put it here? I could have. I honestly could have. I didn't. And I think that just the volatility that I was seeing with the how big some of these moves were at this time, it probably just was, in my opinion, it looks like if I'm looking back, I should have made a note of why I did this because typically I would have gone here if it retested. I'm likely probably looking at this and I'm looking back thinking this looks kind of whippy, like whiplashy and bigger moves. So to stay safe, I just kind of hung out here and that's normally where I would have put it anyway if it hadn't retested. But that is where it is. If you were being more aggressive, though, you definitely could have put your stop loss here. Then, as far as the take profit goes, I did target my take profit one just at the top of this level. Like I said, you'd be hoping that it would make a new higher high. I wasn't trying to push my luck, so I was just targeting the most recent high, and that risk to reward worked out to be worth it for me. And then take profit two for my second trade was just slightly higher. And I did use a level to the left there. So it was a little bit higher. And I was going for that new higher high type of thing. The reason for entering in trade two. So we did have this breakout here. Like I said, the first trade was already well into profit by the time I was looking to get into trade two. So this first trade was already running risk free. And then trade two had a nice push up and then it comes back and it pulls back into this little like area here. And it's kind of like testing that almost like a mini zone or maybe like a mid-level. I've talked about these in other videos. You can go watch some of my other trading series that I've shown them in. But basically, it would be like the middle point of your zone that you're trading within. So if this is our new support now. So if this line was our resistance that we broke through, and now this becomes our new resistance, and then this is now our new support. I'm probably losing some people here, but just follow me. This is your new zone that you're trading within. I would look maybe like at the middle of it, and this where it had pulled up to and had pushed up into is probably mid zone level. I like to kind of use that as like an idea of like where would you like maybe be entering again, or would the market be kind of coming back to test? It's just something in my head that makes sense. So don't worry too much about it if that confuses you. But essentially, that's kind of the way my mind works, and, like, if the market pushes up but comes back and re-hits that, like, mid-level area between this zone, between your support and your resistance, then I would be comfortable to, like, look for another trade as long as, my signals too for whatever indicator I'm using are still favoring that overall direction. So I have that here. I still have my bullish wave rider signals all along here showing that momentum is still in the bullish direction. So that was a perfectly acceptable trade for me. So I enter in there and then again I did keep my stop loss a little heavy, but this could have gone a little deeper, this little pullback area or retracement, maybe even. Thankfully, it didn't. But in case it did come down and retest the zone that it had broken out of, I wanted to be safe. So I did put my stop loss a little heavy. And then my take profit was, like I said, targeting a number that was used to the left. But it did work out to also be, like, pretty close to, like, a 1R, I believe. That looks like a 1R to me. Yeah. So, you can see what I got here, a little bit over a 1R and then, like, a point 0.8. Oh, for the day, though, totaling it, I did end up with $2,031.25 in profit. So, not a bad day. Still kinda scraped around my 2R that I would like to have. And that's between those two traits. So that's the logic behind this and why I took the two separate entries and not just like stacked them at the same entry point. And that's because I didn't want to double risk at this entry point. I wanted to try to mitigate risk where I could. So once this first trade was no longer a risk to me and I saw that I still had bullish momentum, I was comfortable to get in again and enter a second trade only risking my initial risk amount that I was willing to risk. That's a lot of risk, but you guys get where I'm going there. That's the logic behind those two trades and why I entered them. So that is it for day 3. Hopefully that was helpful for you guys, and I will see you in day 4.